If you love discovering rare moments from the past, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories from history. This heartbreaking image shows a family living in a makeshift shack beside railroad tracks during the Great Depression. Millions of Americans lost their jobs, homes, and savings after the 1929 stock market crash. For many families, survival meant building shelters from scrap materials and hoping for better days. It's a powerful reminder of resilience in America's darkest economic era. Before airplanes dominated long-distance travel, trains were America's lifeline. This bustling station captures a time when steam locomotives connected cities, families, and opportunities across the nation. Travelers dressed in their finest clothes, turning every journey into an event. For decades, railroads shaped the growth of the United States and helped build a truly connected country. Long before factories produced tools by the thousands, blacksmiths were essential members of every community. From horseshoes to farming equipment, nearly everything made of metal passed through their hands. The sparks flying from the anvil symbolized the craftsmanship and hard work that helped build early America, one hammer strike at a time. This scene captures a major turning point in American life. For the first time, families could gather around a television and experience news, entertainment, and culture together. During the 1950s, TV transformed living rooms into windows to the world, changing how Americans spent their evenings and how stories were shared across the nation. After World War II, suburban neighborhoods began spreading across the country. Affordable homes, growing families, and steady jobs created a new vision of the American dream. Children played safely in the streets while neighbors built close-knit communities. For millions of Americans, scenes like this represented optimism, stability, and a brighter future. Open late and glowing with neon lights, diners became a symbol of American culture. They were gathering places where families, travelers, and workers shared meals and conversations. From burgers and milkshakes to midnight coffee, these roadside restaurants reflected the freedom of the automobile age and the spirit of post-war America. This image captures the birth of the modern shopping center. As suburbs expanded, Americans embraced a new way to shop, socialize, and spend their weekends. Parking lots filled with cars, storefront windows attracted families, and consumer culture flourished. These early shopping centers would eventually evolve into the malls that defined later generations. Flying was once considered a luxury reserved for special occasions. This historic airport scene shows passengers boarding a propeller-driven aircraft while loved ones wave goodbye from the terminal. As commercial aviation expanded, distances shrank and the world became more connected. Air travel would soon revolutionize how Americans worked, traveled, and explored. The 1950s brought the rise of teenage culture, and the jukebox became its soundtrack. Diners and soda fountains echoed with the latest hits as young Americans gathered with friends. Rock and roll, fashion, and newfound independence defined a generation that would reshape music, culture, and society for decades to come. Before streaming and multiplex theaters, families enjoyed movies from the comfort of their cars. Drive-in theaters became a beloved American tradition, especially during warm summer nights. Couples, families, and friends gathered under the stars to watch Hollywood's latest releases, creating memories that remain a nostalgic symbol of mid-century America. This bustling grocery store represents a major shift in American life. Before supermarkets, families often visited several small shops to buy necessities. Large self-service stores changed everything, offering convenience, variety, and lower prices. By the mid-20th century, supermarkets became a cornerstone of suburban America and transformed how millions of families shopped every week. This remarkable scene captures a moment when automobiles were still a novelty. Curious townspeople gathered to watch one of these early machines roll down a dusty street. Within just a few decades, cars would replace horse-drawn transportation, reshape cities, and revolutionize travel, forever changing the way Americans lived and moved. Long before interstate highways, adventurous travelers crossed vast stretches of open country on two-lane roads. Gas stations like this became essential lifelines for motorists exploring the nation. As car ownership exploded, road trips turned into a uniquely American tradition, offering freedom, discovery, and the promise of endless horizons. Before television entered most homes, movie theaters were America's favorite entertainment destination. Families dressed up and gathered in grand auditoriums, like this one, to watch newsreels, comedies, and Hollywood blockbusters. For many Americans, the local theater offered an escape from everyday life and a glimpse into worlds beyond their own. Today, screens are everywhere, but this image shows a time when television felt almost miraculous. Early viewers gathered around experimental sets, amazed that moving pictures could be transmitted through the air. What began as a technological curiosity would soon become one of the most influential inventions in modern history. Long before the internet, libraries served as gateways to knowledge and opportunity. Students, researchers, and everyday citizens came to places like this seeking information, education, and inspiration. These quiet reading rooms helped shape generations of Americans, proving that access to knowledge has always been one of the nation's greatest strengths. This lively boardwalk captures the excitement of America's early beach resorts. Families escaped crowded cities to enjoy ocean breezes, amusement rides, and summer sunshine. Destinations like these became symbols of leisure and recreation, offering ordinary Americans a chance to relax, explore, and create lasting memories by the sea. At the beginning of the 20th century, having your photograph taken was a special occasion. Families often dressed in their finest clothes and posed proudly for the camera. These portraits preserved memories for future generations and provide us today with a fascinating glimpse into everyday American life more than a century ago. Before overnight delivery and global shipping networks, courageous pilots carried mail across vast distances in fragile aircraft. These pioneers faced unpredictable weather, limited navigation tools, and dangerous flying conditions. Their efforts helped connect communities across America and laid the foundation for the modern aviation industry we rely on today. In early America, barbershops were community gathering places where neighbors exchanged news, discussed politics, and caught up on local events. A simple haircut often came with lively conversation and a sense of belonging. These shops served as social hubs, reflecting the close-knit communities that shaped everyday American life. Before giant studios and red carpet premieres, filmmaking was a simple and experimental craft. This early movie set shows actors performing in front of a hand-cranked camera, while curious spectators watched from behind the ropes. These pioneers laid the foundation for what would become one of America's most influential industries, Hollywood. For families in the early 20th century, the telephone felt almost magical. For the first time, people could hear the voices of loved ones without traveling miles to meet them. This revolutionary invention brought communities closer together and transformed communication forever. County fairs were among the most anticipated events of the year. Families traveled from nearby towns to enjoy rides, livestock exhibitions, games, and delicious treats. These gatherings celebrated rural life and strengthened community bonds across America. Long before refrigerated trucks and chain stores, local vendors delivered frozen treats from horse-drawn carts. For many children, hearing the vendor arrive was one of the most exciting moments of a summer day. Simple pleasures like these became treasured childhood memories. Department stores transformed shopping into an experience. Elegant interiors, grand staircases, and countless products under one roof attracted shoppers from across the city. These stores represented the growing prosperity and consumer culture of early modern America. Before fast food restaurants became common, soda fountains were popular gathering places. Friends met for conversations, families enjoyed treats, and young people socialized over milkshakes and ice cream sodas. They became an important part of American social life during the early 20th century. This fascinating street scene captures America during a period of change. Horse-drawn wagons share the road with early automobiles, showing how rapidly technology was transforming everyday life. Within a few decades, cars would dominate roads across the nation. Factories like this powered America's industrial growth. Thousands of workers operated massive machines to produce textiles and other goods that fueled economic expansion. These factories helped build the modern economy, though often under challenging working conditions. Before commercial air travel, ocean liners connected America with the rest of the world. These enormous ships carried immigrants, tourists, and business travelers across the Atlantic. For many newcomers, arriving by ship marked the beginning of a new life in America. This remarkable image captures one of the earliest chapters in aviation history. Fragile aircraft like this proved that powered flight was possible, opening the door to a revolution in transportation. What began as a daring experiment would eventually connect continents and shrink the world. Thousands of hopeful prospectors flocked to rivers and mountain streams searching for fortune. Most never struck it rich, but the gold rush helped accelerate Western expansion and transformed remote settlements into thriving communities. Before electric grids became widespread, city workers manually lit street lamps each evening. The arrival of public lighting made streets safer, extended business hours, and changed urban life forever. It was one of the first steps toward the modern city. Factories filled with powerful machines became the backbone of American manufacturing. Workers produced everything from tools to machinery, helping the United States emerge as one of the world's leading industrial powers during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Before buses and subways dominated transportation, horse-drawn streetcars carried passengers through growing cities. They made commuting easier and connected neighborhoods long before the automobile became common. The telegraph was the internet of its day. Operators could send messages across vast distances in minutes instead of days or weeks. This breakthrough revolutionized business, journalism, and communication across the nation. Firefighting in the past was a dangerous and physically demanding job. Horse-drawn fire engines rushed through crowded streets while firefighters battled blazes with limited equipment. Their bravery saved countless lives and buildings. Scenes like this were once common across the western frontier. Cowboys, sheriffs, merchants, and settlers helped build new communities in rugged landscapes. These towns became symbols of opportunity, adventure, and the spirit of the American West. Long before computers and digital media, newspapers were produced in busy printing offices filled with editors, reporters, and printers. Newspapers connected communities and remained the primary source of information for millions of Americans. When the circus arrived in town, it was one of the biggest events of the year. Families gathered to see acrobats, animals, performers, and spectacular shows. For many communities, it provided entertainment unlike anything they had ever experienced. For millions of immigrants, arriving in America represented hope, opportunity, and a fresh start. Carrying little more than their belongings and dreams, these families helped shape the cultural diversity and strength of the nation for generations to come. Baseball quickly became known as America's favorite pastime. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, local games brought entire communities together. Fans gathered in simple wooden grandstands, cheering for hometown teams. These early ballparks helped turn baseball into a national tradition that united people from all walks of life across the country. Before mass-produced footwear became common, skilled shoemakers handcrafted and repaired shoes one pair at a time. Every stitch required patience and precision. Small workshops like this were essential to local communities, providing durable footwear for farmers, laborers, and families, while preserving traditional craftsmanship passed down through generations. The construction of the Brooklyn Bridge was one of America's greatest engineering achievements. Thousands of workers spent years assembling its massive stone towers and steel cables. When completed in 1883, it connected Brooklyn and Manhattan, transformed transportation, and became a lasting symbol of American innovation, determination, and progress. Wagon wheels were vital to transportation before automobiles dominated American roads. Craftsmen carefully shaped wood, assembled spokes, and reinforced wheels with iron rims. Their work kept farms, businesses, and travelers moving across the country. This trade required remarkable skill, ensuring every wheel could withstand rough roads and heavy loads. Small rural churches served as the heart of many American communities. Families traveled by wagon and horseback to attend services, socialize, and share local news. These gatherings strengthened community bonds and provided spiritual guidance. For many settlers, the church was far more than a place of worship. It was a center of daily life. Laundry was once a full-day chore requiring hard physical labor. Clothes were scrubbed by hand, rinsed in large tubs, and hung outside to dry. Families often worked together to complete the task. Scenes like this remind us how much effort everyday household responsibilities demanded before modern appliances transformed domestic life. Steamboats were the lifeline of many American rivers during the 19th century. They transported passengers, mail, livestock, and cargo between distant communities. River towns depended on these vessels for trade and communication. Their arrival often brought excitement, economic opportunity, and a vital connection to the rapidly growing nation. Railroad workers helped build the transportation network that connected America from coast to coast. Using hand tools and immense physical effort, crews laid miles of track across challenging terrain. Railroads accelerated settlement, expanded commerce, and made long-distance travel faster than ever before, helping shape the modern United States. Bustling marketplaces were the economic heart of many early American communities. Farmers, merchants, and families gathered to buy, sell, and trade goods. These markets offered more than commerce. They were places to exchange news, build relationships, and strengthen community ties in an era before supermarkets and modern shopping centers. The blacksmith was one of the most important craftsmen in town. From horseshoes and wagon parts to farming tools, nearly everyone depended on his skills. Working with fire, iron, and heavy hammers, blacksmiths helped keep communities functioning. Their craftsmanship played a critical role in America's growth and development. Before modern schools, many American children attended one-room schoolhouses like this. A single teacher often taught students of different ages in the same classroom. Heated by a wood stove and furnished with simple desks, these schools served rural communities. Despite limited resources, they helped educate generations and shape the future of America. Before railroads reached every corner of the country, stagecoaches were a primary means of long-distance travel. Passengers endured rough roads, unpredictable weather, and lengthy journeys. Pulled by teams of strong horses, these coaches carried people, mail, and supplies, connecting isolated settlements to the growing network of American commerce and communication. A typical frontier town was a busy center of daily activity. Families gathered water, merchants sold goods, blacksmiths forged tools, and travelers arrived by wagon. Muddy streets were common before paved roads. Communities like this formed the backbone of early America, where hard work and cooperation helped towns survive and prosper. Life on a frontier homestead required every family member to contribute. Parents and children worked together carrying water, chopping wood, tending animals, and maintaining the household. These tasks were essential for survival. Scenes like this reflect the determination and resilience that characterized many American farming families during the 19th century. Railroads revolutionized transportation across America. Steam locomotives carried passengers and freight faster than ever before, shrinking distances between cities and towns. Train stations became bustling centers of activity where travelers, workers, and merchants gathered. The railroad helped fuel economic growth and played a major role in shaping modern America. This image captures the early days of computing, when entire rooms were filled with massive machines. Engineers and technicians carefully monitored systems that had less power than today's smartphones. These pioneering computers laid the foundation for the digital revolution, transforming communication, science, business, and everyday life throughout the United States and beyond. Mining played a crucial role in America's industrial growth. Workers extracted valuable minerals that fueled manufacturing, transportation, and economic expansion. Operations like this required immense labor and organization. Mining towns often emerged around these sites, creating communities that depended on the success of the industry for jobs and prosperity. Many small mining operations were family-run businesses. Entire families often lived and worked near the mines, contributing to daily operations in various ways. These communities faced difficult conditions and economic uncertainty, but they helped supply the raw materials that supported America's rapid development during the late 19th century. This unusual three-wheeled vehicle reflects the creativity of early automotive designers. During the 1940s, engineers experimented with compact, fuel-efficient transportation options. Vehicles like this offered affordable mobility, at a time when innovation was reshaping travel. Though uncommon today, such designs contributed to the evolution of modern personal transportation. Mining was one of the most demanding and dangerous occupations in American history. Workers spent long hours extracting ore from deep underground tunnels using simple tools and machinery. Despite the risks, miners helped drive economic growth by providing essential resources. Their efforts played an important role in building the nation's industries. This remarkable photograph captures a family living on a small houseboat, likely during a period of economic hardship in America. The cramped floating home served as both shelter and workplace. Despite difficult conditions, daily life continued. Children played, clothes were washed, and parents cared for their family. It's a powerful reminder of resilience, resourcefulness, and the determination of ordinary Americans facing uncertain times along the nation's rivers. The Schoolhouse Blizzard, Dakota Territory. January 12, 1888. The Larson family homesteaded 160 acres outside Ord, Nebraska. Knut Larson broke sod with oxen. His wife, Greta, kept a root cellar so full you could eat through March. Their children, Ingrid, 13, and Ole, 9, walked 2 miles to the one-room schoolhouse every morning, no matter the weather. January 12th dawned warm, almost 50 degrees. Kids went to school in shirt sleeves. By 2 p.m., the sky turned black in the northwest. The temperature fell 40 degrees in an hour. A blizzard hit with 60 miles per hour winds and ground snow so thick you could not see your hand. The teacher let the children go early, afraid the school stove would run out. Ingrid tied a rope from the schoolhouse door around her waist and tied the other end around Ole's wrist. "Hold my coat and do not let go," she told him. They missed the road in whiteout. They spent the night in a haystack in an open field. Burrowed in like mice, Ingrid wrapped Ole in her wool shawl and sang every hymn she knew to keep him awake. When he started to fall asleep in the cold, she pinched his cheeks. A neighbor found them at sunrise, both alive, frostbitten, curled together in the hay. 235 people died in the schoolhouse blizzard across the plains that day, most of them children walking home from school. Ingrid lived to 1952. She kept that frayed piece of schoolhouse rope in her sewing basket in Lincoln her whole life. "My mother told me to always bring my brother home," she'd tell her grandchildren. "The sky fell that day. I just held tighter." The Whale, New Bedford, Massachusetts, 1857. The Mayhew family hunted whales. Captain Thomas Mayhew sailed out of New Bedford on the bark Ocean Rover in June 1857, bound for the Pacific grounds. 3 years at sea, if the hunting was good. His wife Abigail was pregnant when he left. She kept his captain's log at the kitchen table while he was gone. Every night she wrote the date, the weather in New Bedford Harbor, and one line for her husband to read when he came home. October 3rd, clear. Ruth took her first steps today. March 12th, gale. Ruth said Papa. Their daughter Ruth was born in November 1857. Thomas met her for the first time in August 1860, when she was almost 3. She hid behind her mother's skirt. Thomas brought home a scrimshaw whale tooth he had carved during the long nights in the Pacific. A ship under full sail, and on the back, in tiny letters, Abigail plus Ruth. He had carved it a year before he ever saw his daughter's face. He shipped out again 6 months later. That was whaling. Most men spent more of their children's lives at sea than at home. Ruth lived to 1941. She kept that scrimshaw tooth on her mantle in Fairhaven her whole life. "My father hunted whales so I could eat," she'd tell visitors. "He missed my whole childhood doing it. He carved our names on a tooth in the middle of the ocean so he would not forget what he was coming home to." Between 1835 and 1870, more than 10,000 New England men died at sea in the whale fishery. New Bedford was once the richest city in America, built on whale oil. The Laundry, Sacramento, California, 1849. The O'Rourke family came from County Cork during the famine. Patrick O'Rourke sailed to California in 1849 to dig gold at Sutter's Mill. His wife Mary followed 6 months later with their son Daniel, 10, after Patrick's letters stopped coming. Patrick was dead when they arrived, cave in at a claim on the American River in July. buried with 3 other Irishmen in an unmarked slope. Mary did not go home. There was no home to go to and no money to get there. She rented a canvas tent on J Street in Sacramento and hung a sign painted on a flour sack, "Mrs. O'Rourke, washing, $8 per dozen." Miners paid in gold dust. $8 a dozen shirts was more than most men made digging in a week. Mary boiled water from dawn till midnight over an open fire. Daniel hauled water from the river, 50 buckets a day. His hands cracked and bled. One night, Daniel found a pea-sized gold nugget sewn into the cuff of a miner's shirt. A miner hiding his find from his partners, enough to buy passage back to New York for both of them. Daniel brought the shirt and the nugget to his mother. Mary looked at it a long time, then she sewed the nugget back into the cuff and finished washing the shirt. "Your father came here for gold and it killed him," she said. "We will eat from honest work." She ran that laundry for 22 years. Put Daniel through school. He became a printer for the Sacramento Union. Daniel lived to 1918. He kept his mother's wooden washboard, split down the middle and wired back together, hanging in his print shop. "My mother could have bought our way home with 1 nugget," he'd tell his apprentices. "She washed it clean and sent it back instead. That washboard put me through school. Honest work lasts longer than gold." In 1849, a dozen eggs cost $18 in Sacramento. A woman with a wash tub could out-earn any miner. The last flock, Pike County, Ohio, 1900. The Miller family were market hunters. Jacob Miller could call passenger pigeons down by the thousand with a live decoy bird tied to a stool. His wife, Sarah, salted and barreled the birds for shipment to Chicago and New York, 12 cents a dozen. Their son, Eli, 13, worked the nets. He could pluck a bird in 10 seconds flat. In the 1860s, a single flock could black out the sun for hours. 3 billion birds in North America. By 1900, there were almost none left. Telegraphs told hunters where the last nesting colonies were. Railroads shipped them out by the ton. On March 24, 1900, Eli found a small flock in the beech woods near their cabin. Maybe 30 birds, the last he had seen in 2 years. Jacob raised his double barrel. Eli put his hand on his father's arm. "Pa, if we take these, that's it. There won't be any more. Ever." Jacob lowered the gun. They watched the flock lift, blue-gray against the spring sky, wings clapping like thunder, gone south. It was the last wild passenger pigeon Eli ever saw. 14 years later, on September 1, 1914, a captive bird named Martha died alone in the Cincinnati Zoo. The species was extinct. Eli lived to 1968. He became a game warden for the state of Ohio. He kept a single iridescent passenger pigeon tail feather pressed in his family Bible. "My daddy fed our family with these birds," he'd tell the boys he took hunting. "Then we killed them all for 12 cents a dozen. Take 1, leave 10, or your grandkids will hunt memories." The Milk Strike, Price County, Wisconsin, 1933. The Kowalski family milked 18 Guernseys outside Phillips. Stanislaw Kowalski came from Poland in 1906 and bought 80 acres with 10 years of lumber camp wages. His wife, Helena, made butter so yellow it looked like sunshine. Their daughter, Sophie, 12, got up at 4 a.m. every morning to help milk before school, winter or summer. In 1933, milk was selling for 90 cents per hundredweight. It cost $1.40 to produce. The banks were taking farms every week in the county. In May, the farmers organized a milk strike, blocked the roads, dumped the milk, forced the price up. Stanislaw sat at the kitchen table with a full 10-gallon can, unsold. Sophie had not had new shoes in 2 years. Helena poured the milk into the hog trough while Sophie watched. 40 gallons that week. The hogs would not even drink it all. Some ran into the ditch, white in the dirt. A neighbor crossed the picket line to sell. Another farmer burned his barn that night. No one talked about who. In August, the state guard came with bayonets to get the milk trucks through. Sophie stood on the porch holding her empty milk pail, watching soldiers point rifles at her father for trying to get a fair price for food. The strike broke in November. Prices crawled up to $1.15 by spring. Sophie lived to 2001. She kept that dented milk pail hanging in her kitchen in Warsaw her whole life. "My mother dumped milk while I went to school hungry," she'd tell her grandchildren, "so the men in the city could have cheap milk and we could go broke making it. I never poured a drop down the sink after that. Not once in 70 years. The 1933 Wisconsin milk strikes led directly to federal milk price supports, still in place today. The light split. Rock, Lake Superior, Minnesota, 1913. The Anderson family kept the light at Split Rock. John Anderson was the head keeper. His wife, Margaret, wound the clockwork that turned the Fresnel lens every 2 hours all night in winter. Their daughter Ruth, 14, logged every ship that passed in a big leather book. Name, time, weather. She knew every whistle. On November 7, 1913, the White Hurricane hit the Great Lakes. 3 days of 90 miles per hour winds and 35-foot waves. The worst storm in Great Lakes history. The lens at Split Rock turned all night, cutting through snow so thick you could not see the cliff edge. Margaret and Ruth took turns winding it while John tried to keep the oil from freezing. Out on the lake, 19 ships went down. 248 sailors died. But not one ship wrecked on Split Rock's cliffs that night. The light held. Ruth logged every hour in that book, her handwriting shaking from cold. Last entry, November 10th, 4 a.m. Wind and W still terrible, light burning bright, God keep them. Ruth lived to 1982. She kept that logbook on her parlor table in Two Harbors. When kids asked about the storm, she'd open it to November 1913. "My mother wound that light with hands cracked open from cold," she'd say. So strangers she would never meet could find the shore. That is what a family is for. Split Rock Lighthouse never lost a single ship to its rocks while it was manned. The Widow's Walk, Gloucester, Massachusetts, 1893. The Silver family came from the Azores to fish cod off George Bank. Manuel Silver captained the schooner Grace May. His wife, Rosa, mended nets on the wharf and kept a candle in the window every night he was out. Their daughter Isabel, 10, could splice rope faster than most deckhands. She kept a logbook of every trip her father made. Date out, date back, barrels of fish. On February 14, 1893, the Grace May did not come back, nor did 9 other Gloucester schooners. A nor'easter took them all in one night. 78 men lost. The newspapers called it the Great Gloucester Gale. Rosa stood on the Widow's Walk every evening for 3 weeks, watching the empty harbor. Isabel stood with her. The fishing company paid nothing. No insurance. Rosa took in washing from the other widows. Isabel quit school at 12 to work in the net loft. Isabel lived to 1968. She never married a fisherman. She became the first woman to keep the books at the Gloucester Fish Auction. Every February 14th, she would walk down to the Fisherman's Memorial and lay a piece of spliced rope at the base. "For my father," she'd say, "he fed a city that forgot his name when the sea took him." That memorial in Gloucester now has over 5,300 names carved in stone. Most were immigrants, most were fathers. The Last Deer, Appalachia, Kentucky, 1908. The McCoy family had hunted the Cumberland Ridges for 5 generations. Silas McCoy could track a whitetail through Laurel by the bend in the grass. His wife, Ruth, smoked venison so it kept all winter. Their son, Caleb, 13, got his first rifle at 10. He could dress a deer clean and thank it, the old way. By 1908, the timber companies had bought the ridges, clear-cut them bare. Then the state passed game laws. No hunting out of season, no hunting without a license, $5 for the license. The McCoys made $40 a year. A game warden rode up in November. "This land is posted now. Blue Ridge Lumber. You shoot a deer here, that's poaching." Silas looked at the empty smokehouse, at Caleb growing fast and always hungry. "My granddaddy hunted here before Kentucky was a state," he said. That winter was hard. The company store took scrip only. Ruth boiled bark tea when the corn ran out. In February, Caleb found fresh tracks in the snow. One old buck, limping. He followed it for 3 hours, raised his rifle, then lowered it. "Let him make more," he whispered. He came home empty-handed. Ruth hugged him anyway. The McCoys left the holler in the spring, moved to Cincinnati to work in a shoe factory. Caleb never hunted again. Caleb lived to 1972. He kept his father's old powder horn on his workbench in Ohio, empty. When his grandsons asked about Kentucky, he'd tap it and say, "We didn't stop hunting because the deer ran out. We stopped because the woods got a fence and a price tag." Remember that when someone tells you hunger has rules. Farm family, the Locust Summer, Nebraska, 1874. The Olson family came from Norway to homestead in Custer County. Lars Olson filed his 160 acres under the Homestead Act in 1872. His wife, Ingrid, built their sod house herself while pregnant. Their daughter, Anna, 9, could read the sky for rain before the men could. They broke 40 acres by hand. In June 1874, the wheat stood waist-high, green and perfect. Ingrid had already promised Anna a new dress from the sale. On July 25th, the sun went dark. Not clouds, grasshoppers, Rocky Mountain locusts, billions of them, a living snowstorm that roared like a train. They ate everything in 6 hours: the wheat, the garden, the laundry off the line, the tool handles, the bark off the young trees. They got in Anna's hair. When they lifted, the fields were black stubble, like they had never been planted. Lars walked to town for relief flour. There was none. Ingrid boiled prairie grass and made locust bread with ground-up grasshoppers baked in. Anna ate it without crying. They stayed. Most neighbors left. In the spring, Ingrid found one wheat stalk alive against the sod house wall, sheltered from the wind. She saved every grain from its head, planted them by hand the next year. Anna lived to 1958. She kept a little glass jar on her kitchen windowsill in Omaha with 3 dried grasshoppers in it. "My mother fed me these," she'd tell her grandchildren, "so I could grow up and feed you. Don't waste bread." The locust swarms of 1873 to 1877 starved thousands of Plains homesteaders. The Rocky Mountain locust went extinct by 1902. Ludlow, Colorado, 1914. The Petros family came from Greece to work the coal at Ludlow. Spiro Petros dug 12 hours a day for $1.68. His wife, Eleni, lived with their 2 boys in a canvas tent in the strikers' colony after the company evicted them from company housing. Their son, Nikos, 11, ran messages between tents. The miners had struck for safer timbering, an 8-hour day, and to be paid in real money instead of company scrip. John D. Rockefeller's Colorado Fuel and Iron hired the National Guard. On April 20th, 1914, the Guard opened fire on the tent colony with machine guns, then set the tents on fire. Eleni pulled Nikos and his little brother into a pit dug under their tent floor. 11 children and 2 women suffocated there when the canvas burned over them. Spiro survived. He dug his family out with his bare hands. Nikos lived to 1987. He became a union carpenter in Pueblo. He kept a charred tin cup from that pit on his workbench. "My mother told me to be quiet and breathe shallow," he told his apprentices. America learned that coal was cheaper when the men who dug it couldn't complain. 20 people died at Ludlow that day. It led directly to the 8-hour workday in the mines. Lac Sunday, Cimarron County, Oklahoma, 1935. The Hayes family farmed wheat outside Boise City. Frank Hayes had plowed 160 acres. His wife, Ruth, canned peaches every summer. Their daughter, May, 10, kept a diary. She wrote about dust. By 1935, the topsoil was gone. No rain for 4 years. Rabbits died in the fields. On April 14th, Black Sunday, a wall of black dust 1,000 feet high rolled in at 60 miles per hour. Noon turned to midnight. May tied a wet flour sack over her face and read to her little brother under the table while the house filled with dirt. They left in June, piled the truck high. California or bust, like 2.5 million other Plains refugees. They made it to Bakersfield, picked peaches for 15 cents an hour. May kept writing. May lived to 2005. She kept that dust-caked diary in a kitchen drawer. On the first page, April 14th, 1935, it says, "The sky fell today. Mama says God didn't leave Oklahoma. The dirt just got tired." She taught school to migrant kids for 40 years. Evening reflections, a quiet night by the campfire. As dusk settled over the landscape, the O'Duncan family gathered around a small campfire beside their caravan. The soft glow of the flames illuminated their faces, creating a peaceful scene after a day spent traveling and exploring new places. Mrs. O'Duncan sat comfortably with a warm cup of tea in her hands, while Mr. O'Duncan relaxed nearby, enjoying a quiet moment of rest. Behind them, their caravan stood against the fading light of the evening sky, serving as both a home and a dependable shelter wherever their travels took them. The photograph captures a side of caravan life that often went unnoticed, the simple moments of stillness that followed long days on the road. While travel brought constant movement and new experiences, it also offered opportunities to pause, reflect, and enjoy the company of loved ones. The campfire creates a natural gathering place, encouraging conversation, relaxation, and shared memories. Even without a permanent home, families like the O'Duncans maintained familiar routines that brought comfort and stability to everyday life. The evening setting emphasizes the balance between adventure and tranquility. Each day presented new destinations and discoveries, while each night provided a chance to rest and reconnect. These regular rhythms helped create a sense of continuity despite the ever-changing surroundings. More than a record of travel, the photograph highlights the personal side of life on the road. It shows how meaningful experiences were often found not only in the journey itself, but also in the quiet moments shared with family and friends. Through companionship, reflection, and a connection to the outdoors, travelers found a sense of purpose and contentment wherever they went. The image stands as a reminder that the value of a journey is often measured not by the miles traveled, but by the moments of peace, connection, and memory created along the way. Community of travelers, a gathering on the road. By 1950, the O'Duncan family had become part of a growing network of people who embraced a mobile lifestyle. At markets, fairs, and community gatherings, caravans from many different regions came together, creating temporary neighborhoods filled with activity and social connection. In this photograph, the family's caravan is parked among numerous others, forming a lively gathering place for travelers. People move between stalls and vehicles, browsing goods, exchanging information, and enjoying conversations with friends and newcomers alike. The atmosphere reflects both commerce and community. The O'Duncans can be seen interacting with fellow travelers and vendors, demonstrating the relationships that often developed among people who spent much of their lives on the road. These gatherings provided opportunities to share experiences, exchange practical advice, and maintain social ties despite frequent travel. The image highlights an important aspect of caravan life. Mobility did not mean isolation. Travelers often formed strong networks and communities that extended across regions. Markets and fairs served as meeting places where people could reconnect, trade goods, and strengthen relationships built over many years. Visible in the distance is the outline of an urban skyline, illustrating the connection between traveling communities and the towns and cities they visited. Although their lifestyles differed, mobile and settled populations regularly interacted through trade, employment, and social events. More broadly, the photograph reflects the emergence of a distinct caravan culture during the post-war era. For many families, travel offered not only freedom and opportunity, but also a sense of belonging to a wider community. Through shared experiences and lasting friendships, travelers created social networks that endured despite the constant movement of life on the road. The image serves as a reminder that community is not defined solely by permanent residence. Even among people who traveled from place to place, strong bonds, traditions, and a shared sense of identity could flourish. The moment of displacement, a family faces an uncertain future. In 1931, Maria Elena Vargas stood outside her small home in California's Imperial Valley with her two young sons by her side. At that moment, officials arrived to review documents and determine who could remain in the community during a period of widespread deportation and repatriation efforts. The photograph captures a tense and emotional encounter. Maria holds her children close, her posture reflecting both concern and determination as she faces an uncertain future. Her focus is clearly on protecting her family while navigating a situation largely beyond her control. The officials, carrying paperwork and representing government authority, stand in sharp contrast to the vulnerable family before them. Their presence symbolizes the policies and administrative decisions that affected thousands of families during this era, often leaving individuals uncertain about their rights, status, and future. Stretching beyond the scene is the open landscape of the Imperial Valley, a region where many agricultural workers lived and labored under difficult conditions. The setting underscores the challenges faced by families who depended on seasonal work and had limited access to legal, financial, or political support. More broadly, the image reflects a period in American history when many Mexican and Mexican-American families experienced displacement, separation, and uncertainty. Communities that had spent years building homes and livelihoods suddenly found themselves confronting decisions that could alter their futures. The photograph serves as a powerful reminder of the human impact of government policies and economic hardship. It captures a moment when a mother faced extraordinary challenges while trying to provide security and stability for her children. Through her courage and determination, the image tells a larger story about resilience, family bonds, and the struggle to preserve hope during difficult times. Education by firelight, a mother's dedication to learning. After long days of hard work, Maria Elena Vargas spent her evenings helping her two sons learn to read. With limited resources available, she used old newspapers she had saved, turning simple printed pages into valuable learning tools. This photograph captures a quiet moment of instruction. Seated near a small fire, Maria guides her children through words and sentences, patiently sharing knowledge despite the challenges her family faced. The warm glow of the fire lights their faces, highlighting the concentration of the boys and the care with which their mother teaches them. The room itself is modest, containing only a few basic possessions. Yet through Maria's determination, it becomes a place of learning and opportunity. Although formal educational materials were scarce, she found creative ways to ensure that her children could continue developing important skills. The image reflects the belief held by many parents that education could open doors to a better future. Even during times of poverty and uncertainty, families often made great sacrifices to support their children's learning and personal growth. Maria's efforts demonstrate both resourcefulness and commitment. Rather than allowing difficult circumstances to define her children's prospects, she devoted time and energy to helping them build knowledge and confidence. Her actions reveal a deep belief in the value of education and its power to create new opportunities. The firelight adds a sense of warmth and closeness to the scene, emphasizing the strong bond between mother and children. More than a lesson in reading, this moment represents hope, perseverance, and the enduring influence of a parent who believed in her children's potential despite the obstacles surrounding them. Passing down knowledge, teaching the next generation. In 1940, Maria Elena Vargas worked side by side with her two sons, teaching them the skills needed to help operate the family's tamale business. Beyond showing them how to prepare and sell food, she was sharing important lessons about responsibility, perseverance, and pride in their work. The photograph captures the boys assisting their mother in the kitchen. Their focused expressions suggest a desire to learn and contribute, while also reflecting the confidence that comes from acquiring valuable skills. Maria watches over them with a sense of purpose, recognizing that the knowledge she passes on today could help shape their futures. For Maria, the business represented more than a source of income. It provided an opportunity to create stability for her family and to equip her children with practical abilities that could support them throughout their lives. Through daily work and instruction, she helped them develop independence, confidence, and an understanding of the value of hard work. The image also highlights the important role families played in preserving cultural traditions and passing knowledge from one generation to the next. Skills, recipes, and work habits were often taught at home, becoming part of a family's shared identity and heritage. The kitchen in the background suggests a business that had become an established part of family life. It served not only as a workplace, but also as a learning environment where children could gain experience and prepare for future opportunities. More broadly, the photograph reflects how parents invested in their children's futures despite economic challenges. Through dedication, teaching, and example, Maria helped ensure that her sons would inherit both practical skills and a strong sense of self-worth. The image stands as a testament to the enduring connection between family, cultural heritage, and economic opportunity. A gentle wind swept across the open landscape as a mother sat with her children in quiet reflection. Resources were scarce, and the future offered few guarantees, but she cradled her infant with care and reassurance. The weariness on her face revealed the hardships she had endured, yet her determination remained evident. Despite the uncertainty surrounding her family, she continued to provide comfort, stability, and strength for those who depended on her. In a world filled with challenges, her devotion to her children served as a powerful source of hope. While many things remained uncertain, the love she shared with her family offered a sense of security and the belief that better days could still lie ahead. By 1934, nearly everyone passing through Dry Creek, Missouri, was headed somewhere else. Some were leaving failed farms. Others were chasing rumors of jobs. Most carried everything they owned in the back of a truck. Few had enough food. 63-year-old widow Clara Benson noticed the same thing every morning. Families stopped beside her property to rest before continuing west. Children climbed from overloaded vehicles, looking exhausted. Mothers stretched the last pieces of bread. Fathers pretended not to be hungry. Clara had little herself. Her husband had died years earlier. The depression had reduced her income to almost nothing, but she still had a garden, and she still had a stove. One morning, she placed a small wooden table beside the road and hung a handwritten sign. Hot soup, 5 cents. The first traveler paid, the second couldn't. Clara served him anyway. Soon she stopped keeping track. Some people paid, some offered vegetables. Others left firewood. Many had nothing at all. Nobody was turned away. Each morning she filled a large iron pot with whatever ingredients she could find. Beans, potatoes, carrots, corn, whatever the season allowed. The smell drifted down the road and became known among migrants traveling west. Before long, families planned their journeys around Clara's roadside kitchen. A bowl of soup wasn't much. But during the hardest years of the Depression, it could mean another day of strength. In 1938, a newspaper reporter asked Clara why she continued feeding strangers. She looked at the line of hungry travelers waiting near her table and replied, "Because somebody would do the same for my children." Nobody knows exactly how many people she fed. The town estimated thousands. Years after her death, former migrants still remembered the widow beside the road who gave them a warm meal when they needed it most. Sometimes history is changed by presidents. Sometimes it's changed by a woman with a soup pot and a reason to care. The potato field children of Aroostook, 1939. September 1939, Aroostook County, Maine. Potato harvest. The whole county stopped for 3 weeks. Schools closed. Everyone picked. The Giroux family had 14 kids, ages 4 to 18. They didn't own land. They followed the harvest from farm to farm. Pay was 7 cents a barrel. A good picker did 30 barrels a day. That was $2.10. Rent was $8 a month. Dad Alcide had lost his hand in a thresher in '32, so Mom Claire ran the crew, 5 a.m. to dark. She'd line the kids up oldest to youngest. Little ones picked what the big ones missed. Babies sat in barrels at the end of the row. September 21st, 1939, frost came early. Ground froze solid by 9 a.m. Potatoes would rot if you didn't get them. Claire put the 4-year-old Emile on her back. Gave the 6-year-old a spoon, said Dig. They dug with spoons, with hands with broken barrel staves. Kept the crop from freezing. Farmer paid them an extra $2 for saving his field. They ate meat that night, first time in 2 months. Emile grew up and bought that farm in 1967. Still had Mom's spoon in the kitchen drawer. Said it dug him out of poverty. 14-year-old Margaret Sullivan stood guard with her father's hunting rifle outside Hospital Room 212 on December 1st, 1919, where her 12-year-old sister Rose Sullivan lay 6 months pregnant, and 60-year-old nurse Mrs. Helen O'Connor had tried to enter and had said, "Child, put that rifle down." And Margaret had said, "No, ma'am. My husband is coming to take Rose home today. He married me when I was 13. He married Rose when she was 11. I had my baby at 14. Rose is 12 and 6 months pregnant. If he takes her home, she'll die like our cousin did. He is not passing this door." And Mrs. O'Connor had said, "Margaret, give me the rifle and I'll call police." And Margaret had said, "You call police. I hold the rifle until they come. He beat me for trying to protect her last month. I won't fail today." And Mrs. O'Connor had called police, and when 38-year-old William Sullivan arrived, police were waiting and Margaret still held the rifle, and William was arrested for child marriage and attempted kidnapping, and Rose was placed in protective custody with Margaret, and Margaret testified, "I was 14 holding a rifle. My sister was 12 and pregnant in that room. I told the nurse, he's not passing. I was ready to shoot him before I let him take her." A 14-year-old with a rifle held a door against a 38-year-old man. The rifle was empty. My courage wasn't. Margaret lived until 2011, dying at age 98. Before her death, she reflected, "I was 14 holding my father's rifle outside my 12-year-old sister's hospital room. She was 6 months pregnant. Our husband was coming to take her. I told the nurse, he's not passing." The rifle had no bullets. He didn't know that. Police came. He was arrested. Sisters protect sisters. That day, I protected mine with an empty gun and full rage. The rifle was empty. My will wasn't. She lived. That's all that matters.
These workers are surrounded by mountains of oyster shells, part of a once booming seafood industry. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, oyster harvesting fueled local economies across America. Behind this simple scene lies a demanding job that helped feed millions and supported thriving coastal communities. Long before email and instant messages, postal workers handled enormous amounts of mail by hand. Inside these sorting cars, workers organized letters while trains sped across the country. This moving post office system helped connect Americans and played a major role in keeping the nation running. These young women are enjoying one of the earliest bumper car rides, capturing the excitement of a growing amusement park culture. During the 1920s, attractions like these offered families affordable fun and unforgettable memories, reflecting a time when entertainment was becoming part of everyday American life. Captured in 1893, this busy street market reveals everyday life before supermarkets existed. Vendors sold fresh fruits and vegetables directly to local families. Scenes like this were common across American cities, where neighbors gathered, shopped, and socialized, making markets an important part of community life. Before modern safety equipment, window washers often worked high above city streets with little protection. Balancing on narrow ledges required incredible courage and skill. As skyscrapers transformed American cities, workers like these performed dangerous jobs that kept the growing urban landscape looking its best. This group portrait captures factory workers during America's industrial boom. These men helped power the nation's rapid growth, producing machinery and goods that transformed everyday life. Their hard work fueled economic expansion and laid the foundation for the modern industries that shaped 20th century America. Before snowplows became common, horse-drawn equipment cleared roads during harsh winters. Communities depended on these simple but effective machines to keep transportation moving. This scene highlights the ingenuity and determination of Americans who faced severe weather long before modern technology made the job easier. Life along the coast demanded hard work and self-reliance. This fisherman prepares his gear near a quiet harbor where small communities depended heavily on the sea. Long before industrial fishing, families survived through patience, skill, and a close connection to the rhythms of nature. This scene shows families gathered in what appears to be a temporary settlement during difficult times. Throughout the Great Depression, many Americans faced poverty and uncertainty. Despite hardships, communities supported one another, demonstrating resilience and determination during one of the toughest periods in USA history. Family attractions like these became symbols of post-war America. Parents and children spent weekends enjoying amusement parks and simple rides that created lasting memories. As prosperity grew during the 1950s, leisure and family entertainment became an important part of the American dream. Streetcars were once the backbone of urban transportation in American cities. Long before traffic jams and highways dominated daily life, thousands of commuters relied on electric trolleys to reach work and home. These bustling scenes captured the rhythm of city life during the early 20th century. Factories like this transformed food production through assembly lines and mechanized packaging. Women played a major role in these industries, especially during wartime and economic expansion. Their work helped feed millions of Americans while demonstrating how automation was reshaping modern manufacturing. Horse auctions attracted huge crowds, with buyers carefully inspecting animals used for farming, transportation, and industry. Before automobiles became widespread, horses were among the most valuable assets a person could own. These lively sales represented an essential part of everyday commerce. Early photographers proudly posed with their bulky cameras and tripods, which required patience and skill to operate. Photography was still a developing profession, and capturing a single image often involved long exposure times. These pioneers preserved countless moments that now provide windows into history. Popular seaside resorts offered Americans a chance to relax and escape busy city life. Families gathered on beaches wearing fashionable clothing while enjoying fresh ocean air. Such destinations became symbols of leisure and prosperity during the early 20th century as travel became increasingly accessible. Before modern machinery took over, harvesting crops demanded hard physical labor under the hot sun. Farmers relied on simple tools and teamwork to bring in their harvest. Agriculture remained the backbone of the American economy, supporting both rural communities and growing cities. Roller skating rinks became popular gathering places for teenagers and families during the mid-20th century. Music, friendships, and recreation filled these lively spaces. Before video games and social media, skating rinks provided one of America's favorite ways to socialize and have fun. Small shoemaking workshops depended on skilled craftsmen who carefully shaped and repaired footwear by hand. Every pair required patience and experience. Long before mass-produced shoes became common, these artisans provided essential services that kept communities supplied with durable and comfortable footwear. Delivery trucks carrying Coca-Cola bottles helped spread one of America's most recognizable brands across the country. As road networks improved, beverages and consumer products reached even remote communities. These deliveries played an important role in building the nationwide culture of modern advertising and convenience. Before indoor ice rinks became common, families created their own skating ponds each winter. Communities gathered outdoors to enjoy one of America's favorite cold weather traditions. These frozen ponds brought neighbors together and turned ordinary winter days into moments filled with fun, laughter, and lasting memories. This daring publicity stunt captured attention during the early skyscraper era. Men often posed in dangerous places to promote businesses or simply amaze the public. As cities grew taller during the 1920s, fearless daredevils became symbols of a generation fascinated by risk and modern urban life. Inside this enormous textile mill, powerful machines transformed raw materials into fabric used across America. During the Industrial Revolution, factories like these fueled economic growth and created thousands of jobs. They also marked a major shift as machines increasingly replaced traditional handcraft production methods. Long before online shopping, department stores became centers of entertainment and luxury. Shoppers crowded display counters to browse jewelry, watches, and expensive goods. By the early 20th century, these grand stores offered Americans a completely new shopping experience and helped shape modern consumer culture. Before trucks dominated deliveries, horse-drawn wagons supplied homes and businesses with coal. This fuel heated millions of American households during harsh winters. Coal drivers worked long hours hauling heavy loads, providing an essential service that kept families warm before natural gas became widely available. Harvesting oranges was labor-intensive work that depended on skilled hands and simple tools. Citrus farms played a huge role in the economies of states like Florida and California. Workers carefully picked each fruit, helping establish America as one of the world's leading producers of citrus. Traveling circuses thrilled audiences across America with breathtaking acrobatic acts and incredible human pyramids. These performers spent years mastering dangerous routines that amazed crowds of all ages. Before television became common, the circus was one of the country's most popular forms of family entertainment. Shoe shiners were once a familiar sight in American cities. Young workers polished shoes for businessmen and travelers, earning a few cents with each customer. For many boys, this humble job provided valuable income and reflected a time when appearance and polished shoes mattered greatly. Inside this small workshop, women carefully crafted fashionable hats by hand. During the 1920s, hats were considered essential accessories, and millinery became a thriving industry. Skilled workers combined creativity and craftsmanship to produce stylish designs worn by women across America and beyond. For millions of immigrants, scenes like this marked the beginning of a new life in America. Arriving with little more than suitcases and hope, families crossed oceans seeking opportunity and freedom. Their journeys helped shape the nation's culture and contributed to the diverse America we know today. The breadwinner. At 13, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1931. When Dominic Rousseau's father fell from a scaffold at a construction site in November 1930 and broke both legs, Dominic, 13, became the family's earner. His mother Maria had 6 younger children. His father would not walk properly for 11 months. Dominic left school on a Monday morning and did not go back. He found a job delivering groceries for a market on South Street for 50 cents a day. He woke at 4:30, loaded the cart, and made deliveries until noon. In the afternoons, he shined shoes outside the reading terminal for whatever he could get. Sometimes a nickel, sometimes a dime, sometimes nothing. On good weeks, he brought home $4. On hard weeks, 2. His mother stretched it. She made pasta from flour and eggs and fed 9 people from a single pot. Dominic's father recovered and found light work by late 1931, but Dominic never went back to school. He worked. At 17, he was running his own small delivery business with a borrowed pushcart. By 23, he had a truck. By 30, he had 3. He built it from 50 cents a day and a shoe shine rag. He paid for his 5 brothers and sisters to finish school. He said that was the only thing he ever wanted from money. On May 5, 1945, American forces from the 11th Armored Division reached Mauthausen concentration camp, perched on a hillside near Linz, Austria. Established in 1938, shortly after the annexation of Austria, Mauthausen became known for its brutal stone quarry labor, where prisoners were forced to carry heavy granite blocks up steep staircases under constant abuse from guards. When American troops arrived, they found approximately 20,000 prisoners still alive within the main camp and its network of subcamps, many in advanced stages of starvation. The camp's notorious Stairway of Death, a 186-step granite staircase, had claimed countless lives as exhausted prisoners collapsed under the weight of their loads, often pushed by guards into fatal falls. Mauthausen had been classified by the SS as a Category 3 camp, designating it among the harshest in the system. Reserved for prisoners considered the most dangerous political opponents of the regime. Death rates were correspondingly severe, with overall mortality estimates suggesting tens of thousands perished from the combination of forced labor, executions, and disease. In the days following liberation, American soldiers worked alongside surviving prisoners to organize medical care, food distribution, and burial of the dead. Local Austrian civilians were later compelled by American commanders to assist in burying victims, a practice used at multiple liberated camps to confront nearby populations with the reality of what had occurred so close to their homes. February 11, 1937, in the Ozark Mountains, Arkansas. The Harris family had lived in this cave since 1935. The bank took their farm. The cave was dry, 58 degrees year-round, and free. William Harris, 36, built the rock fireplace and shelves. His wife Martha, 33, cooked on it. Their children were John, 10, Mary, 8, Clara, 6, Paul, 12, and baby Ruth asleep on the quilt. The lantern was kerosene. The shelves held beans, flour, and lard. The quilt on the wall was from Martha's mother. The wood was cut by the boys. William worked on the WPA road crew for $21 a month. Martha took in laundry. They lived here until 1939, when William got a job at the dam. Paul died in Korea in 1951. John kept this photo. He said, "We were poor, but we were warm, and we were together." The cave is on private land now. The fireplace is still there. The postmaster of Cripple Creek, Colorado, winter 1899. Meet the woman who kept a mining town connected to the world through the worst winter in memory. When the blizzard of February 1899 buried the mountain rose into Cripple Creek, Colorado under 11 feet of snow and cut the town off from supply lines for 22 days, the post office became the most important building in town. Not because of mail, nothing was coming in, but because Postmaster Clara Hatch, 46, opened it as a coordination center for the entire isolated community of 4,000 people. Clara knew every family in Cripple Creek by name. She knew who had enough food and who did not, who had coal and who was burning furniture. which households had infants and which had elderly invalids who could not survive another week of cold. She ran the post office 18 hours a day, turning it into a registry of needs and resources. She sent miners in pairs to households she knew were in trouble. She organized a rationing system for the town's grain stores using the postal ledger system she understood better than anyone. She wrote every decision in the official postal logbook because she knew if she kept it official, no one could easily overturn it. When the roads were finally cleared on March 3rd and the supply wagons came through, not a single person in Cripple Creek had died of cold or starvation during the 22-day isolation. The Colorado state government sent a letter of commendation addressed to the town leadership. Clara received it at the post office window, stamped it received, and filed it in the incoming mail. She told no one about it for 6 years. The mining company gave the mayor a dinner. Nobody gave Clara Hatch anything. She said the job had been its own reward and meant it without bitterness, which made it somehow more remarkable. During the severe winter storms that swept across Cape Ann in the 1850s, 14-year-old Eliza Grant lived with her family in a small cottage beside a coastal lighthouse near Gloucester, Massachusetts. Her father served as the lighthouse keeper, and from an early age, Eliza learned how important the beacon was to the fishermen and sailors who depended on it to navigate the rocky shoreline. One stormy evening, a powerful nor'easter battered the coast with heavy snow, fierce winds, and rough seas. As conditions worsened, Eliza's father became seriously ill and was unable to perform his duties. At the same time, the lighthouse lamp unexpectedly went out, leaving the dangerous coastline hidden in darkness. Understanding the risk to vessels attempting to return to harbor, Eliza acted without hesitation. She climbed the lighthouse tower alone, while strong winds shook the structure around her. Reaching the lantern room, she carefully relit the oil lamp and worked throughout the night to keep the beacon shining. Despite the freezing temperatures and relentless storm, she repeatedly checked the flame, added fuel, and maintained the light so it would not fail again. Hours later, a fishing schooner approached the coast through the blinding weather. The restored beacon provided a critical warning, helping the crew avoid a stretch of hazardous rocks and safely find their way toward shelter. Without the lighthouse guiding them, the vessel might have been lost in the storm. News of Eliza's efforts spread through the surrounding communities. Fishermen, merchants, and local families praised her determination and sense of responsibility. Though she never sought recognition, many people remembered her as the young woman who kept the lighthouse shining when it was needed most. In the years that followed, Eliza continued assisting with lighthouse operations and shared her knowledge of navigation signals, weather conditions, and coastal safety with younger members of her family. Her story became a local example of how courage, dedication, and quick action can make a difference even during the most challenging circumstances. During the drought-stricken years of the 1930s, many communities across the Navajo Nation faced severe hardship as dry conditions, dust storms, and livestock reductions threatened traditional ways of life. Among those working to help their neighbors was Mary Bigatsosi, a dine weaver and livestock caretaker who became respected for her resourcefulness and deep understanding of the land. Drawing inspiration from knowledge passed down through generations, Mary developed practical methods for conserving precious water in an unforgiving environment. Using whatever materials were available, including discarded metal sheets, weathered wagon lumber, and hand-shaped clay, she built simple systems designed to capture and store runoff from seasonal storms and melting snow. Her projects directed water into carefully prepared basins and underground storage areas that reduced evaporation under the intense desert sun. The collected water supported small garden plots where families grew drought-tolerant crops such as corn, beans, and squash. It also provided a dependable source of water for livestock during periods when natural supplies were scarce. Maintaining these systems required constant effort. Strong winds often damaged the structures, and difficult economic conditions left many people uncertain that improvement was possible. Nevertheless, Mary continued repairing, expanding, and teaching others how to care for the water-saving network she created. As more families adopted similar techniques, small areas of productive farmland appeared in places that had once seemed unable to support crops. The harvests helped communities supplement their food supplies and trade for necessities such as flour, fabric, and household goods. Mary often reminded those around her that survival depended on working with the land rather than against it. She believed that careful stewardship and shared responsibility could help communities endure even the harshest conditions. By the end of the decade, her efforts had supported numerous households across the region. Her story became a lasting example of resilience, cooperation, and the value of traditional environmental knowledge during one of the most challenging periods in the American Southwest. Set in 1935 near La Junta, Colorado, Quilt of Memories takes place in a migrant camp where families displaced by the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression struggle to rebuild their lives. Many residents have been forced to leave their farms after years of drought, crop failure, and financial hardship. Surrounded by temporary shelters and uncertainty, they face not only the loss of their homes, but also the challenge of holding on to their sense of identity and belonging. At the heart of the story is a quilt carefully made and preserved by grandmother Elena. More than a household item, the quilt serves as a record of family history. Every patch tells a story and represents an important piece of the family's past. A section cut from Papa's Sunday shirt reflects his pride, values, and determination. Pieces from old baby blankets symbolize love, care, and the continuity of family across generations. One especially meaningful patch comes from a feed sack that once carried the family's final supply of wheat seed. This scrap recalls both the hardships they endured and the hope they held on to as they tried to remain on their land before circumstances forced them to leave. By combining these pieces into a single quilt, Elena creates something larger than the individual scraps themselves. The quilt becomes a symbol of unity, bringing together memories of people, places, and experiences that might otherwise be lost. In many ways, it reflects Elena's efforts to keep her family connected despite the disruption and uncertainty surrounding them. The children see the quilt as a link to the home they left behind. As they follow the patterns and seams, they are reminded of familiar places and family stories. Although they have been uprooted physically, the quilt allows them to maintain a connection to their past and preserve a sense of belonging. Throughout the story, the quilt also contrasts with the harsh environment outside the family's shelter. While strong winds and blowing dust represent instability and hardship, the quilt offers warmth, comfort, and continuity. Elena's habit of singing familiar songs while working reinforces her role as a guardian of family traditions and shared memories. Her belief that the quilt can help the family remember what time and hardship might erase highlights one of the story's central ideas: that objects, stories, and traditions can preserve history when circumstances threaten to take it away. The quilt becomes more than fabric and thread. It serves as a vessel for memory and a reminder of who the family is. Ultimately, the quilt symbolizes resilience, family strength, and the enduring power of storytelling. In a world marked by displacement and uncertainty, it functions as a portable reminder of home, demonstrating that while people may lose land and possessions, they can still carry their history, values, and connections with them. Set in 1936 near Guymon, Oklahoma, the flour sack dress takes place during the height of the Dust Bowl, when drought, crop failures, and economic hardship affected countless farming families. During this period, resources were scarce, and many households learned to reuse nearly everything they owned. Flour and feed sacks, once considered simple packaging, became valuable materials that could be transformed into clothing, household linens, and other necessities. What may have begun as a practical business decision by manufacturers eventually provided an important source of fabric for families struggling to make ends meet. At the center of the story is Clara's handmade Sunday dress, which symbolizes dignity and self-respect despite difficult circumstances. Creating the dress requires patience, skill, and determination. The process of cleaning, softening, and sewing the flour sacks into wearable clothing reflects the effort many families invested in making the best of limited resources. Through her mother's craftsmanship, a material associated with scarcity is transformed into something beautiful and meaningful. The setting reinforces the challenges faced by the characters. Dust from the surrounding plains settles over everything, even the colorful patterns of Clara's dress. This detail highlights the inescapable effects of the Dust Bowl and serves as a reminder that hardship touches every aspect of daily life. Yet Clara continues to wear the dress with pride, demonstrating that confidence and self-worth are not determined by wealth or material possessions. The walk to church carries additional significance. During the Great Depression, churches often served as centers of community support, as well as places of worship. Gathering with neighbors provided comfort, connection, and a sense of normalcy during uncertain times. By wearing her handmade dress to church, Clara expresses both pride in her family's efforts and a refusal to feel ashamed of their circumstances. One of the story's central messages is that beauty can be found in creativity, care, and purpose, rather than in expensive or new possessions. Clara's perspective reflects a belief that something made with love and dedication can hold greater value than something purchased without effort. This idea challenges traditional views of wealth and appearance by emphasizing character and resourcefulness instead. Ultimately, the flour sack dress explores themes of perseverance, family support, craftsmanship, and personal dignity. It illustrates how people facing difficult conditions can find ways to create beauty and maintain hope. In a time when dust and hardship seem to touch every corner of life, Clara's dress stands as a symbol of resilience, proving that pride and optimism can endure even in the most challenging circumstances. On a small farm outside Liberal, Kansas, strong winds swept across the dry fields as the Harper children gathered tumbleweeds to use as fuel for their mother's outdoor cooking oven. With firewood difficult to find and coal no longer available, the dried weeds became an important source of heat. They burned quickly but produced enough warmth to bake simple cornbread made from government-issued flour and a small amount of lard. 12-year-old Elias and his sister Lila helped prepare the dough on an old wooden table while their younger brothers and sisters stayed close to the house, seeking shelter from the blowing dust. Fine dirt seemed to settle on everything, covering their clothing, hair, and even their food. Despite the conditions, the fresh bread brought comfort to the family because it eased their hunger and reminded them that they could still provide for one another. Before each meal, their father paused to give thanks. He expressed gratitude for the tumbleweeds that helped cook their food when their crops could no longer sustain them. His words reflected the family's determination to make the best of difficult circumstances and find hope in whatever resources remained. This passage highlights the creativity, perseverance, and gratitude that many families relied on during the hardships of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. The Day the Wind Stole Home, 1928. On April 15, 1928, residents near Rugby, North Dakota experienced one of the most powerful windstorms in the region's history. Unexpected straight-line winds, estimated to exceed 100 miles per hour, swept across the countryside with tremendous force. The storm caused widespread destruction, damaging homes, farms, and businesses in a matter of minutes. Buildings throughout the area suffered severe damage. Barns were torn apart, large trees were uprooted, and several houses were pushed from their foundations. Some structures were carried significant distances before collapsing. Farmers reported seeing equipment, debris, and even livestock swept across open fields by the intense winds. One local resident recalled watching his automobile roll repeatedly across the prairie as the storm passed through. The community of Rugby was hit especially hard, with many buildings damaged or destroyed. Although the storm left a path of devastation, residents were fortunate that no fatalities were reported. In the aftermath, families worked together to clear debris, recover belongings, and begin rebuilding their homes and farms. Recovery required determination and cooperation. Neighbors shared materials, labor, and supplies to help one another restore what had been lost. As the years passed, stories of the storm were handed down through generations as a reminder of both the power of nature and the strength of the community. A twisted piece of metal from a damaged barn became a keepsake for one farmer, serving as a lasting reminder of the day powerful winds transformed the landscape. The event remains remembered as a remarkable example of resilience in the face of an unexpected natural disaster. In 1918, the coal town of Mattawan, West Virginia, children skipped school to gather fallen coal along the railroad tracks. Winter came early that year, and most miner families had no money left after the influenza epidemic swept through the camps. 22-year-old school teacher Eleanor Price noticed half her students arriving barefoot with coal dust rubbed inside their gloves to keep their hands warm. So every Thursday after lessons, she marched her class down the frozen Tug Fork River, carrying burlap sacks and lanterns. The children picked loose coal that spilled from passing trains, while Eleanor stood watch for railroad guards. The coal companies called it stealing. Eleanor called it survival. By Christmas, her students had gathered nearly 3 tons of scattered coal for widows and sick families across the camp. One night, a railroad officer caught the children loading sacks onto a mule cart. Instead of arresting them, he quietly handed Eleanor his own lunch pail filled with biscuits and apples. Years later, one of her students became a union organizer and said, Miss Price taught us poor people survive by carrying each other. Eleanor stayed in the mountains until her death in 1964 and never missed a single winter with her students. The Prairie Families of Nebraska, 1933. During the worst years of the Great Depression, farming families across Nebraska struggled against drought, debt, and collapsing crop prices that pushed many rural households to the edge of survival. Dry winds swept across the prairie, while failing harvests left barns nearly empty, and families uncertain how they would survive another season. The Whitaker family lived on a small farm outside Grand Island, where years of poor crops forced them to depend almost entirely on gardens, livestock, and constant repair work to survive. Henry Whitaker fixed broken wagon wheels, patched fences, and traded labor with neighbors, while his wife Clara sewed clothing from feed sacks and preserved every vegetable the family could grow. Children worked from an early age alongside their parents. Boys hauled water and repaired chicken coops, while girls gathered eggs, canned vegetables, and helped wash clothes by hand beside large metal tubs. Meals were simple: potatoes, cornbread, beans, eggs, and whatever meat could occasionally be hunted or traded for nearby. Nothing around the farm was wasted because replacing supplies had become nearly impossible. Despite the hardship, prairie communities remained closely connected. Families shared seed, tools, livestock feed, and labor during planting and harvest seasons. Churches and neighbors quietly helped struggling households survive winters when money disappeared completely. One Nebraska farmer later remembered, "The prairie could be unforgiving, but people learned early that surviving hard times meant surviving them together. There is a weight in the eyes of children from the late 1930s that you rarely see today. Sitting on the porch of a cabin that the wind seems to whistle through, these kids carry the maturity of adults. They know the exact price of a bag of beans. They know why their father's shoulders are slumped when he walks home from the dam project. Barefoot and dressed in flour sack clothes, they aren't asking for toys or gadgets. They are looking straight into the lens of history, challenging us to remember what it means to be truly poor. John, the oldest, once said, 'We were poor, but we were warm, and we were together.' That togetherness was their only shield against a world that had seemingly forgotten them. In an age of endless more, these children remind us that enough is a luxury. They lived through the hardest years and came out the other side with a bond that could never be broken by a bank or a drought. Does your family have a story of surviving the hard years together? March 1939, Western North Carolina. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains, a narrow wooden bridge stretched across the Tuckasegee Creek, connecting scattered families to schools, mills, churches, and neighboring communities. During the difficult years of the Great Depression, even a simple bridge could mean the difference between isolation and opportunity. The bridge had been built several years earlier by local resident Joe Crawford, a hard-working farmer and carpenter who stepped forward after flooding destroyed the original county crossing. With public funds scarce and repairs delayed, he gathered timber, tools, and help from neighbors to create a replacement that kept the valley connected. To cover maintenance costs, a small collection box stood beside the bridge. Travelers often dropped a penny or two into the can before crossing. School children walked over it each morning. Workers used it to reach nearby mills, and families relied on it for trips into town. Though modest in appearance, the bridge became an essential part of daily life. Photographs from the era captured scenes of buses, pedestrians, and wagons moving across the structure, illustrating how rural communities survived through cooperation and determination. Residents understood that maintaining the bridge was a shared responsibility, and many contributed whatever they could. Eventually, government programs funded a stronger replacement crossing, but the original bridge remained remembered as a symbol of local initiative and resilience. For years, it served as more than a route across a creek. It represented a community refusing to let hardship cut them off from one another. Sometimes the most important landmarks are built not by governments, but by neighbors helping neighbors. The Soup Pot Church, Harlan County, Kentucky, 1933. In Harlan, the church closed because the preacher left to find work. The building stayed empty until winter hit hard. 3 widows, May, Bess, and Cora, rolled 2 giant washpots into the yard, built fires underneath, and started soup with nothing but water, potatoes, and wild onions. They hung a sign on the door, "Come hungry, leave prayed for." Miners brought a carrot, a bone, a handful of beans. Every noon the pots bubbled. People ate first, then sang because there was no sermon left. By Easter 1934, that church had fed over 4,000 bulls and never took a single offering. The county clerk wrote in his log, "Church reopened by soup." In the humid summer of 1905, the swamps of southern Louisiana were alive with cicadas and the chatter of frogs. The Dubois family of French Creole descent lived in a small, stilted cabin above the bayou. 12-year-old Marcel Dubois helped his parents with fishing, cooking, and caring for his younger siblings. One afternoon, a sudden flash flood threatened to sweep away the family's small rowboat and a neighbor's children playing nearby. Marcel grabbed 2 younger children and led them to higher ground, using nearby cypress trees as shelter from the rising waters. He then helped gather livestock and secure possessions, ensuring no one was harmed. Though newspapers never recorded the incident, the story became a part of the Dubois family legacy. Marcel's courage and quick thinking reinforced the bonds within the community and demonstrated the quiet heroism children often exhibited in rural, isolated areas. The Scrip Marbles, Wise County, Virginia, 1934. When the company store closed in Wise County, families were left with tin coins called scrip worthless everywhere, except the store that no longer existed. Kids in the camp did not cry about it. They took those brass scrip pieces out into the dirt street and started playing marbles. Click, clack, all summer long. One boy, Carl, won 47 pieces. He strung them on a wire and hung them on his porch like wind chimes. When the wind blew, the whole hollow heard the sound of money that could not buy bread, but could buy a game. Years later, men would say, "That was the summer we finally got our money's worth." Oklahoma, 1935. The wind had a way of finding its way through every crack in the boards, bringing with it the smell of dust and despair. 12-year-old Tommy Carter watched his mother tie a flour sack over her hair before stepping outside to feed the chickens, though half of them had perished in last week's storm. His father had been studying the truck all morning, tightening bolts, checking the patched tires. Word had come from a cousin in Bakersfield. There was work picking fruit if you could make it there. They had little more than a few blankets, a coffee tin of coins, and the hope that the road west would offer more than the barren, cracked earth they were leaving behind. Tommy climbed onto the truck bed with his younger sister, clutching the family's last quilt, stitched by their grandmother before she passed. As the engine coughed to life, their farmhouse, leaning, weather-beaten, and stubborn, grew smaller in the distance. The journey would take weeks through heat, hunger, and the endless rumble of wheels on dirt. But in that moment, as the wind whipped past, Tommy allowed himself to imagine green fields heavy with fruit and a table that never sat empty. The 3 sisters who carried a piano. 17 miles. So their mother could die at home, Oregon, 1903, October 1903, Siskiyou Mountains, Oregon. Ma Ellie Cooper, 61, was dying of consumption, in hospital in Medford. Said, "Want to hear my girls play Blessed Assurance one more time, at home." Home was 17 miles up a mule trail, Applegate Valley, no wagon road. Sisters, May 19th, Ruth 17th, Ann 14th. They had an upright piano, 600 pounds. Doctor said, impossible. They hired 2 mules. Mules refused after mile 3. Too steep. The girls sent the mules back, cut 8 poles, made a litter, took turns, 2 carrying, 1 ahead clearing brush. 17 miles, 4 days, snow on day 3, slept under the piano. Got it home, October 29th, set it in the parlor, tuned it with a kitchen knife, played for Ma October 30th. She died November 1st. Neighbors came for the funeral, saw the mud on the piano legs. Nobody asked how it got there. Piano is still in that cabin. Cooper family still owns it. Could you carry the weight of your neighbors' lives up a muddy mountain road for barely $1? For the women of Quicksand, Kentucky, this was the daily trek of survival. Before the sun even touched the ridges, they were already moving, hauling heavy tubs of laundry down toward town, only to return at dusk with the bone-crushing weight of wet clothing and soap buckets. This image captures the raw reality of the 1930s, a generation of women who were the literal pillars of their community. Their backs were bent, but their resolve was as solid as the rocky soil they walked on. There were no shortcuts in the Appalachians. There was only the long, steep climb toward a rent payment that never got any easier. Every step was a silent prayer for endurance, a battle fought against gravity and poverty. They were the architects of a resilience that statistics can't capture, turning a simple chore into a lifeline for their children. When you look at them, you see the heartbeat of a forgotten era, a reminder that the hardest work is often the quietest, and the steepest hills are climbed by those who have no other choice. The School Lunch Pail, 1936, Dalhart, Texas. 12-year-old Ruthie Mae Carter walked 2 miles to the WPA school in Dalhart every day, through dust that turned her hair white by the time she got there. She carried a lard pail for lunch. Most days it was empty. Her teacher, Miss Evelyn, noticed. Miss Evelyn brought an extra biscuit every day and slipped it into Ruthie's pail when she wasn't looking. In March 1936, the school started a hot lunch program, 1 cent a day. Ruthie's family had no pennies. She sat outside on the steps while the other children ate beans and cornbread inside. She pretended she wasn't hungry. One day, Miss Evelyn called her in anyway and set a bowl in front of her. Ruthie said, "I can't pay." Miss Evelyn said, "You already paid. You help me sweep the floor every afternoon. That's a penny's worth." Ruthie ate. She ate slowly so it would last. It was the first hot food she had in weeks. From then on, Ruthie swept the floor every day without being asked. She also started bringing her 6-year-old brother, Tommy, who was too young for school. She would split her bowl with him under the stairs. Miss Evelyn pretended not to see. In May, the family left for California. On the last day, Ruthie left her lard pail on Miss Evelyn's desk. Inside was a note written in pencil. "Thank you for the beans. I will pay you back." 22 years later, in 1958, Ruthie, now a nurse in Bakersfield, drove back to Dalhart. She found Miss Evelyn retired and living alone. Ruthie brought her a grocery bag full of food and a new lunch pail. She said, "I'm paying you back." Miss Evelyn cried and said, "You paid me back the day you shared with your brother." The House That Traveled, Mississippi, 1909. In 1909, a family living beside the Mississippi River faced an impossible choice. The river was slowly eating their land. Every year, the water came closer. Their house was strong, but the ground beneath it was disappearing. The father, Thomas Reed, refused to abandon the home he built. He gathered neighbors and designed a solution. Using logs, ropes, and a team of horses, they slowly moved the entire wooden house uphill. Not piece by piece, the entire structure. For 3 days, the house traveled across the field. Children watched from windows as their home moved like a giant wooden wagon. The plan succeeded. The family lived there for another 30 years. Visitors later came just to see the house that had crossed a field without being taken apart. Locals called it the Walking House. In the winter of 1894, the small Appalachian town of Harlan, Kentucky, was blanketed by snow and the smoke of coal furnaces. Life revolved around the mines, and children often shared the burdens of labor with their parents. Among them was 13-year-old Clara Jenkins, the daughter of a miner who had fallen ill with pneumonia. Clara spent her mornings delivering firewood and water to neighbors, and her afternoons helping her younger siblings with schoolwork and chores. One night, a sudden mine cave-in trapped several miners underground. Panic gripped the town as families waited for news. Clara, knowing the tunnel's layout from helping her father in better days, ran to the mine entrance, carrying lanterns and ropes. She guided rescuers to a hidden shaft opening that had been overlooked, allowing trapped miners to climb to safety, exhausted and covered in coal dust. She helped comfort families while the last miners were extracted. Though official records did not mention her, Clara became a quiet hero in Harlan. The miners and townsfolk celebrated her courage in private gatherings, retelling the story to children as a lesson in bravery and quick thinking. She continued helping her community throughout harsh winters, showing that even young hands could make the difference between life and death in the unforgiving Appalachian hills. Clara Jenkins's story reflects the overlooked heroism of children in industrial and rural communities. In towns where danger was a daily companion and survival demanded cooperation, her courage and initiative left a lasting mark on her community, demonstrating that resilience and bravery often appear in the youngest and most unexpected members of society. February 11, 1937, in the Ozark Mountains, Arkansas. The Harris family had lived in this cave since 1935. The bank took their farm. The cave was dry, 58 degrees year-round, and free. William Harris, 36, built the rock fireplace and shelves. His wife Martha, 33, cooked on it. Their children were John, 10, Mary, 8, Clara, 6, Paul, 12, and baby Ruth asleep on the quilt. The lantern was kerosene. The shelves held beans, flour, and lard. The quilt on the wall was from Martha's mother. The wood was cut by the boys. William worked on the WPA road crew for $21 a month. Martha took in laundry. They lived here until 1939 when William got a job at the dam. Paul died in Korea in 1951. John kept this photo. He said, "We were poor, but we were warm, and we were together." The cave is on private land now. The fireplace is still there. The ranch cook who ended a feud. Montana, 1889. For years, two neighboring cattle ranches near Miles City, Montana, argued over grazing rights. Fences were cut, livestock disappeared, tempers ran high. Many feared the dispute would eventually turn deadly. Caught in the middle was ranch cook Maggie O'Connor. Every day she fed cowboys from both outfits whenever they passed through. Unlike the ranch owners, she spoke with everyone. After a particularly harsh winter left both ranches struggling, Maggie proposed something unusual, a shared cattle roundup and community supper. Few expected either side to agree, yet hunger and exhaustion softened attitudes. The event brought together families who had not spoken in years. By summer, the feud had largely ended. One rancher later admitted, "The lawyers failed, the sheriff failed. Maggie fed us until we remembered we were neighbors." Sometimes peace arrives at the dinner table.